Any questions for Zita while she's here, please? Is that okay, Zita?
Yep. What's the impact on these young people's lives outside the involvement with boat? Do they tend to go further in life?
Yeah. Quite a lot of my students have, because the school that I have in Longboat is sort of described by the principal as a school of greetings, where they go in to learn, the trades, and they're not academically strong, and quite a lot of the students are from, 95% of the students are from the rural areas of Samoa, from all the outer islands as well. So they come into the school for a second chance. And quite a lot of them come in with very aggressive behavior, quite violent in some cases, and very low self-esteem. So the longboat has become a sort of to them, a symbol of excellence. It's become something that they all want to be on, to get onto, because of it's amazing what they come through, because a lot of them come in with this aggressive behavior, and by the end of a season with me, they've become this sort of like really relaxed, loving, boys who are, if you say, like for the first time that they come in, you've got to say, I love you. Are you kidding me? Are you crazy? And of course, the second year, the third year, and the fourth year students are like laughing their heads off and saying, oh, Captain will work on you, and you'll be saying, I love you in no time. And sure enough, by the end, before the end of the season, they're like, I love you. And I said, but you have to mean it. You have to say it with meaning. And they do. It's almost every member of the crew end up, because they come from these situations or families where they're not very expressive about love. I mean, I think it's sort of common sometimes in most families that you don't say I love you, like really mean it, and just go up to somebody and say I love you. And it's the same with these boys. But at the end of a season, to see these really muscular, strapping young men between the age of 15 and 23 coming up to you and to say, I love you, Cap, you're so awesome. It is just absolutely wonderful. And that's what drives me. It drives me to do this work that I have a gift for. It was something that was thrust on me. I didn't want. But then when I got into it, I thought, whoa, this is it. This is where I'm supposed to be. But coming back to your question, quite a lot of my students now have gone on to be great rugby players in Europe. They've, because they've owned that sort of that belief in themselves. Because they come in with very low self-esteem and they leave with that esteem is up here. It's just it's an amazing thing to see. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean that's right.
Yeah.
The fact that they, if you like, they start from that place of second chance,
Yeah.
and go to the other
Yeah.
amazing. We need it in New Zealand. We need it everywhere.
Yeah, I think it was, for me, this thing of love, it's such a crucial part of human beings, really. You take it back to basics of human needs and connection with each other, and when we don't have that, you're sort of like, you're living half a life, really, because you don't have that connection with each other. And I feel that that's something that is really important in my teachings, and I think it's also, I bring it also to my company, in my business, where my staff are You know, you have some guys that come in really macho and they end up saying, I love you, you know, and say that to each other. And I think it's wonderful. And, you know, so it's not just limited to, I think that we shouldn't limit it to just classrooms and stuff like that, that we should bring it, you know, further into corporate world as well. Because we are human beings. And we tend to produce better as well. In our work when we know our value.
Have you considered applying your skill to rugby?
Yeah, it's funny you ask that because the Samoa Rugby Union asked me to come in and give a talk or a coaching type
Pep talk.
Yeah, pep talk to their team. And the boys really loved it. Then, you know, and I said, well, you know, I'm there because it's been, I mean, since 2001, I have a consistent record of, you know, of winning. And the question is always asked, how are you able to do this with 45 people on a longboat? Whereas in a rugby team, you have either 7s or 15. So it's a lot less than 45 on a, you know, and it's a 5-mile race. So it's not a short race. In American Samoa, it's 8 miles on deep ocean with 15 feet swells and a 100-foot longboat with 45 people on it. Yeah, it's quite daunting. Because you know, American Samoa, a race in American Samoa is like the America's Cup. We call it the America's Cup because there's no lagoon, and you're starting 8 miles out, and you're coming into the harbour in Pamu, which is only like the last few minutes of the race, and the rest of it is out in deep ocean. And when the swells in at that particular time of the races in American Samoa in April are really rough, and they're very, very high.
Swells.
Yeah. So you know, you're looking at around between 12, 15 foot swells. So they're pretty huge. And you're having to surf this long boat with 45 men who, for me, is like, it takes me back to, I look at 45 pairs of eyes looking at me, because they're not looking at, you know, because they've got their back towards the waves coming. And I'm the only one that's looking at the waves coming. And they're oblivious to the waves. So you know, you just have to keep smiling, and you become an actor on the boat to inject happiness, a look of happiness when there's a monster coming behind you. And there have been times where I've been completely knocked out of the boat because I've been able to turn the boat around just in case, just in time, and it only hits me. So I'm hanging onto the steer and my feet are out. But the boys are, you know, they're turning the boat. So it's just things like that you look at the 45 pairs of eyes looking at you, and all I could see is 45 pairs of parents' eyes who are hoping to see their child back in Samoa from American Samoa. Because there's no life jackets. Yeah. You sink and you swim. Yeah. But then, you know, the other challenge, the other huge challenge with American Samoa is that our boat is a wooden boat. The American Samoan boats are top of the line, American made, fiberglass, you know, carbon fiber, very light, and very expensive. You're looking at $300,000 US for one boat. Yeah. Our boat is
Plywood.
is wooden, and it's in US dollars or in New Zealand dollars, it would be about 50,000 New Zealand dollars, the cost of our boat compared to the American Samoa boats.
Do they ever capsize?
They do capsize. I've never capsized. Yeah. So it's become a like, for example, when they invite us, that's why they love to invite me and the boat over there, because the hype is built up. It's just crazy. and they just want to see how this wooden boat is going to do again. But we've won over there quite a few times.
I've had plywood boats. They're actually quite good.
Yeah.
They can. A lot of the fiberglass yachts now are rotting,
Yeah.
but the plywood ones, if they're looked after, are actually in better condition at 50 years old.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah, I know, because they keep asking whether I'm coming with the same old boat. And I said, yes, I am. They keep building brand new boats. Anyway.
So can I ask, Zita, the importance of discipline in your team? So you say it's about love and it keeps the beat together. How, important do you see the discipline that you build up and respect in building self-esteem, in helping young men in particular build that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Declan, because it starts with language, like I said, I touched on briefly. The way that they speak to each other. Like quite a few of these things, like every other sentence is an F word kind of thing. And then the language around when they talk about different things, it's quite, like in Samoan, I would say something in Samoan, which is like the norm. Oh my God. Anyway, like, kao se umu, oh my gosh, it's like, kao se umu is baked in the oven. You come here, otherwise you get baked in the oven. Or, yeah, but it's the norm, if you also, I suppose in every culture and every language, they have this language is quite violent, but it's become the norm that we hear it, but we don't actually, we're not conscious about it because it's so normal. Whereas when I bring them in, I get them to be conscious about everything that they do and say. It's, and so they have to start ticking off the things that they normally say, like kao se umu, kaonga mai, like F over here, kind of thing. It's just violent language. You listen to, if you go to a rugby match or any match, and you listen to some of the spectators, and the language that is the cheering, it's quite telling of how we address each other as human beings. So that's where I bring in, I go right back to basics. It's language, it's how you communicate with each other. And if you communicate with really horrible language, you only get horrible things back, and it's just by being really conscious about what you do and what you say and how you are with people. And that's where I start the discipline. It's not with, and then when they start talking and they sort of like check themselves, oops. And it's nice to see that because they're saying, oh my gosh. And I'm thinking, yeah, you're becoming conscious of what comes out of your mouth. Yeah, so I take it also then back to the longboat because the formal word in Samoan for longboat is sa, which is sacred. So I always take it back to, if our ancestors called this craft sacred, there has to be some reason for them to have said that. So I then just say, okay, if we're going to be, this is our classroom, so I call it, this is my classroom, it's the longboat. What you bring onto it is sacred. Your language is sacred. Your behavior is sacred. And that's where it all starts. It's that discipline. Because then they see the longboat, it becomes a symbol of excellence, it becomes a symbol of everything. And it becomes a symbol of consciousness for my crew. And they always check themselves every time. And which is nice. It's I think it's really, I think I've been a skipper now for 18 years. So it's starting to have some impact. Yeah, she's not a woo-woo person.
Mary.
Zita, I love that talk. How do you keep yourself grounded and centered with all the adversity and the challenges that you've had over the years?
I do a lot of meditation, and then I also go out in the ocean a lot. I try to get out in the ocean at least on a daily basis, because it's where it's probably where I get my this connection and of being grounded, of because it's my grandfather was I mean, most of our parents are all people of the ocean, but he lived to 106, so it was he had a huge impact on me as well, and I suppose that's where I got my fearlessness of the ocean. And he always says the ocean is your shield, it's not your enemy. The ocean will feed your soul, and it's something that when you immerse in it, you become fully aware, you know, as a human being, because you're letting the waters wash over you. And that's why I go into the ocean, to be grounded and to be, you know, to just to have that as like my point of reference, to be able to, why is it that I do what I'm doing? And I have to keep asking that. And I just love it. It's something that I am so thankful that I've discovered, or that I was forced into it and find out that this is my purpose, you know. I had sort of, you know, didn't have the same sort of drive and passion for it, because I found this. So I became more and more involved and just really completely immersed in it, and to the detriment of my company as well. But, you know, got in a good team to look after the company so that I could focus on this. But like I said, it's like the different experiences in your life always comes back to this, a meaning to it. I feel, from my experiences, that there is always a meaning to a gap that happened, or to something that happened in your past, for what you are, you know, today. And it's come to pass in a lot of the different things that I've come through, and you know, sometimes I just didn't believe it. And my mom and my parents would say, "Yeah, you laugh now, but you will understand when you get older." And yeah, and sometimes we sort of like push away what our elders say, huh? But yeah.
I've had boats and been on the tiller, and when you mentioned the word grounding, you know, because it's like something in the water, you know, you're holding on to it.
Yeah.
So you are being grounded through the tiller.
Yeah.
And with 45 people as well,
You feel it,
you're grounding their energy at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's
That's
quite
so
a special
true.
privilege to be on the tiller.
Thanks for that, Frank, because yeah, I it's you know, because I always have my hand on it, and then I'm giving the signals, and then sometimes I have to let go of it and give the signals, because you have a 100-foot long boat, and you have the drummer on the bow. So the drummer is the one that looks at me the whole time of the race, because I'm the strategist. I'm the one that calls the strategy of the race. So I'm able then, you know, through him, I would do the signals, and he relays the stroke rate through the drumming. So that's how we row in synchronicity. So the boys have to learn the actual drum beats. So dum 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 dum, and then that's from the long pull, or the, you know, the. But when it comes to the sprint, it goes dum dum. It speeds up. But in between each of these stroke rates, we go into a different sort of like a break of 5 strokes, which to me, and I said to them, it's like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, and then it changes from stroke number 1 to stroke number 2. But it's all relayed through the drummer, who is my mouthpiece, or because it's so long that they will not be able to hear me from, you know, because we're out in the deep ocean. You can hear only up to 3 seats in front of you, but after that, you need a loudspeaker on the boat for them to hear it. Yeah.
Zita, I'm glad you mentioned that because it's incredible. My name's Florence, by the way, guys. I've had the privilege to be on training with Zita and the crew, and I was at the back. I couldn't hear a thing she's saying, and I'm thinking to myself, how do these guys actually know what she's saying? And then I'm watching the signals that she's giving, and I'm listening to the drummer guy at the back telling these boys what to do. And some of them, yeah, that's right. Some of them are afraid, and I can see sometimes they're afraid because they can't hear and they're trying to listen. But this guy keeps telling them, listen to me. I'm telling you, because she's giving the signals. And it's incredible how calm then they become as soon as they learn the signals. And it's just such an incredible feeling to be there and not be afraid, especially when you're going over those big waves.
Can I ask Zita, what's your next big adventure? What is, like, you say you love being a skipper, that's your purpose. Will you continue doing that, or will you think you take something else, or will you pass on that legacy to somebody else? Will you train somebody in here?
Yeah, I'm teaching some of the young men how to skipper, and I'm also looking for young women. But well, you can do it.
It's never too late.
To come in, and I've asked for young women all these years, but it's just that they find it so daunting because they're training all these young men. And I said, look, you could just form up a group of young women and just come in as crew. But it's been slow because it's a tradition that is so steeped in our culture. That it's even for me when I was blessed as a skipper in the church, my mom, she says, "Oh my dear, do you actually understand what this means?" And I said, "I think I do." Oh, I didn't know. I had no idea. Because it was, the country was divided over it. Totally divided over me being a skipper. And the Guild of Skippers wrote a letter of petition to the director of the race, which is the Commissioner of Police, to get me out of because this is going against tradition.
This was back when you started.
Yeah, in 2001.
When did they stop complaining when you started winning?
Yeah. So it sort of made me more determined, I suppose, to, that I found something that I love, and my crew were really, really, getting. I mean, even my crew at the beginning, because my first crew was the National Police Force of Samoa. So when you're dealing with policemen of all different ranks, and you're the only woman in there, it's pretty daunting for a first crew. And it was like there was always tests of me and my character, of whether I would rat on them to the commissioner and stuff like this. But I just did it the way I've always done in sports, is just by being fair, really ruthlessly fair. And if you're a high-ranking detective, doesn't mean that you're going to get an automatic seat on the boat. You have to perform. And that really rankled a lot of men of rank in the police force, because they hated the fact that they were, because Fautasi also means you're level. It means you're one. You're no one is different. There's no rank in Fautasi, so you build together as one because you have no rank. And it just didn't sit very well with the police force, because it just goes against, the corporate ranking in their jobs. And then to have this woman come in and say, "Oh no, you're not getting on that seat," because they would just file onto the boat and say, "I didn't say that you're going to get on the boat." And and then there's also protocols that I have instilled on the longboat, that protocols and designations of where you sit. If you don't know where you're sitting, it's a huge embarrassment, and it's like a huge loss of face if you don't know which pole that you sit at. It's the same on the longboat.
Oh.